Share my screen.
Okay, welcome to our meeting this morning, February 12th. Glad to see everybody here on Zoom again this week. This morning, our invocation will be by the Reverend Steve Smith, and then Dave Williamson will lead us in our pledge. So whenever you're ready, Steve.
Okay, this is a song from Scripture about finding God in the world around us. Glorify the Lord, every shower of rain and fall of dew, all winds and fire and heat. Winter and summer, glorify the Lord. Praise him and highly exalt him forever. Glorify the Lord, O chill and cold, drops of dew and flakes of snow, frost and cold, ice and sleet. Glorify the Lord. Praise him and highly exalt him forever. Glorify the Lord, O nights and days, O shining light and enfolding dark. Storm clouds and thunderbolts, glorify the Lord. Praise him and highly exalt him forever. Amen.
Amen.
Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Steve and Dave. Okay, we'd like to welcome our guests this morning. If you have a guest here, or if you are a guest, other than our speaker who we'll introduce in a few minutes, please unmute yourself and introduce your guest or introduce yourself.
Hey, good morning. My name is Lyle Brown. This is, I think, my third meeting visiting with this club, and I'm preparing my application to join the club now, so I'm really excited. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you. We'll be glad to have you as a new member, Lyle. Other guests this morning. Okay. How about announcements? I would love to hear from Susan or Pete about how the polar bear went. And then
thank you. The polar bear, the 24th annual Polar Bear Open was a success. We raised over $9,500. We had 72 golfers. We, for the raffle, thank you all so much for pitching in and buying a ticket, even if you couldn't go. That was so appreciated. The winners, however, were golfers, even though Amy Barnhart did put a ticket in for each one of you guys if you bought tickets. Teresa Russell won the clubs and John Thompson won the pole cart. Really want to thank Pete and Sanan for chairing this. Pete has run this program for many, many years and has just really got it down to a science. Sanan was busy running around doing lots of stuff and as a great coordinator. We had, let's see, Trevor helped us out. Who else? Bruce Andrews was there. Of course, Andy Keeler and his group stepped up to be a major sponsor, as well as Todd Beckett and Veterinary Centers of America. Fantastic sponsorship, which really helped us springboard into a very successful program. Sunny Street, Osh and his crew fed us wonderful coffee, bagels, muffins, etc. And then Calvin and First Citizens Bank, a great sponsor as well. We had 24 golf hole sponsors. And I think all in all, the weather was perfect. It was 14 degrees, but it was sunny, deceptively so. Roberta and I were out on the course saying, oh, how gorgeous and beautiful it was, but it was a little chilly. And then, of course, I want to thank Rich and Amy for being there to register everyone and take care of the financial end of things. All in all, fantastic event. And first prize went to, oh shoot, I don't have the winners of the actual golf outing. Pete, if you're on here, if you wanted to share who those folks were. Maybe he's not here. Anyway, I'll send you all a recap as well, but I'd say we had a very successful outing and I want to thank you all for your support.
Let's give a hand to our Polar Bear Committee and to our sponsors who made this a successful event this year. And also thank you. We had our big sponsors. We also had a lot of, how many whole sponsors did we have, Susan?
24 whole sponsors.
24 whole sponsors. So that's $2,400. So, you know, all of that really helps and contributes to the success of our event. So thank you to our whole sponsors as well. Other announcements this morning. Be sure to unmute yourself.
I just wanted to share, in case you did not know, there is a Club Runner app that you can get for your smartphone that will is easy to install and will give you access to a complete directory of members. You can do other things on it too, but most people that contact me want to know what somebody's phone number is or email address is, but you can do that right off of your phone with that easy to access and use app.
Wow, who'd have thunk it? A Club Runner app with a
It works.
contact list. That's awesome.
That's great.
Any other announcements this morning?
Yeah, just so everyone knows that pictures from the event are on our Flickr website, and we have pictures going back about 10 years on that website, on the Flickr website. So if anyone ever wants to see any old pictures or whatever, they're there. And we also have a YouTube channel, so our meetings are being uploaded every week, not only to the website, the link from the website, but on YouTube, all our recordings since, I don't know, last couple months are there. So.
Roberta, thank you for doing that. You do all that manually, and I don't know if everybody knows that, so thank you for the work that you do.
My pleasure.
Any other announcements this morning? All right, I'm going to call on Sue Burness to introduce our speaker for this morning.
Thank you, David. Good morning, everyone. I would also like to introduce a guest that I didn't realize was on this morning, and I expected her to be on. But that is Rebecca Myers, and Rebecca is the City of Dublin's Public Information Officer that supports our guest speaker today, which is Chief Justin Paez. Rebecca works on my team, on the communications and public information team for the City of Dublin. And we hired her during the pandemic. In fact, I hired 2 PIOs during the pandemic who are total rock stars, and Rebecca is one of them. And I'm really glad that she is here today. She supports our police department every single day with messaging and creative communication strategies to make sure that we are connecting our police with our community. And so I do want to introduce our police chief today. Safety is one of the hallmarks of the City of Dublin, and people recognize Dublin as a safe place to live, a safe place to work, and that is our guest speaker's highest priority. And I think he spoke to the club shortly after he became chief. Chief, I think that was not last year, it was in 2019, but what a year he's had, or 2 years almost, when you think about the pandemic and you think about the protests that happened over the summer, and the heightened awareness and focus on policing. And I want to assure you, our chief not only serves our community, he is an extraordinary leader of our police department, and his mission is to make Dublin a safe place for everyone here. And so, Chief, I ended up not having your bio handy. But I don't think you need any of that introduction. I am just so happy to have served with you, and we are all lucky to have you leading our city. So Chief Justin Paez.
Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you, Sue. That was a wonderful introduction, and certainly, you know, what you shared. I get emotional just thinking about the journey we've been on over the last couple of years. You know, thank you so much for that introduction, and thank you all for welcoming me again here today to spend some time with you. It's been about 1.5 years since we were last together, and unfortunately, a lot has changed, and we haven't been able to really be in proximity to each other, certainly over the last year, and that's been hard on all of us. But I am so glad that we've been able to come together, at least in a virtual format, to touch base with each other and check on each other and share some information. So I really appreciate the opportunity to come today and share a little bit about the progress of the police department, where we're at currently, what we've been working on, and where we're going in the future. And so I thank you for the opportunity. And I just am grateful again for all of the support and partnership we have in this community, especially as trying as times have been for all of us over the last year. So thank you again. I do have some slides, and we kept them brief this time. I'm prone to being long-winded, so I wanted to make sure I stayed on I stayed on task, but I wanted to also make sure that we highlighted some really important pieces of information that we wanted to make sure you were aware of. And then have some time to just answer any questions you might have as well about that information or anything else you have about the police department you'd like to know. So if we can bring that PowerPoint up.
I wasn't told I needed to bring it up, so it's going to take just a minute to go find it.
No worries, no worries.
All right.
I'm sorry, Ron. I thought that was just, I failed to communicate that.
All right.
Well, and as we're pulling that up as a way of background, I'll just fill in some gaps for those of you I have not met yet. So my name is Justin Paez. I am the Chief of Police here in Dublin. I've been with the Dublin Police Department since 2003. I actually started my career in a small suburb in the Toledo area, Oregon, Ohio, and I worked there for 3 years before I was fortunate enough to come down here with my family and start working for the police department, start serving this community. My wife and I have lived here since 2003. We have 5 kids. Who are 2 of which have graduated from Scioto High School and are on to college, one at Bowling Green as an education major, the other at Dayton as an engineering major. And then we have 3 children who are still in high school at Scioto, a junior who is in the marching band and in the pep band. And then we have twins that are freshmen this year who are cross-country runner, and they both cheer actually for basketball as well. So we are members of St. Bridget. We've been here since 2003. We are very blessed to have, again, come and moved into this community. And I am certainly so grateful to be able to serve in the capacity that I do now and continue to protect and serve this community. Thank you for bringing up the PowerPoint. I apologize for catching you off guard there, I suppose.
Not a problem. Happy to do it.
So I wanted to go through and where we always start, and I didn't put this on there, I was thinking about this morning, but Sue mentioned it, and I want to make sure that we start with the right foundation, and it is talking about that mission of our police department. And the mission of our police department, really in brief, is exactly what I said already: protection, service, and most importantly, public safety and partnership with our community members. That is so important to us, that we lean into conversations with our community members, that we get the opportunity to hear what the expectations are from our community members and figure out how we deliver that protection and service as effectively and as efficiently as we possibly can in dealing with all the issues that contribute to public safety in our community. So each of our goals, and we have some major ones that we highlight each and every year, but they're intentionally designed to contribute directly to us delivering that mission of protection, service, and public safety in partnership with our community. And those goals, just as frame of reference, and as we give an update today on how we progressed over the last year in accomplishing the goals, are critical incident response and preparedness, theft defense reduction throughout the city, improvement of overall traffic safety, and then addressing issues of significant community concern. And those are really the highlight and the framework, again, for which we funnel our activities, our strategy, and our operations to make sure we're contributing to goals that directly impact our ability to deliver on our mission each and every day. So if we can advance and talk a little bit about some of our progress over the last year in contributions towards achieving these goals.
For some reason the slides are not advancing. Let me.
That's no worries. That's perfectly all right. I've got a copy in front of me, and I'll do my best to just make sure I articulate all the information as well. So that first goal of critical incident.
There we go.
Critical incident response and preparedness. Thank you very much, sir. So we wanted to highlight a couple of things. And when we talk about this goal, and I just met with 3 new members of the organization who came on board with us yesterday, and I had some time to sit with them yesterday and walk through these same goals because we want to build the right foundation for them to be successful in contributing to this agency and serving this community. And what we talk about in critical incident response and preparedness is we're very fortunate and blessed to work for a community where we do not have an abundance of those high threshold incidents, those infrequent but life-changing events where as public safety, as a public safety organization and partners in the community, we have to come together and put the world back together again. And we're very blessed that we don't have an abundance of those, but we have to prepare perpetually as if those are imminent. And so one of the focuses for us as an organization is that critical incident response and preparedness. And one of the things that we do each and every year and commit to, which I again, as I came here to this agency 17 years ago, I'm so glad that we have had both the resources and foresight to continue to invest in our in-service training for our officers. And during in-service training, the things that we want to highlight, we want to make sure that we are up to date on legal case proceeding and that we bring in our city attorney to talk to us about changes in law and legal requirements for our officers. We want to make sure that we're proficient in all of those tools that help us deliver safety, that make sure we can protect the members of this community or anyone in our community and protect our officers. And the way we do that, and one of the things I wanted to highlight today is really, it's important for you to understand or for us to explain that we do that really in very realistic scenario-based training. And the reason we do that is we want to make sure our officers are prepared to respond appropriately with whatever they are confronted with in the community. I never want an officer to experience an event and the first time they have had to think through, how do I handle this? How do I bring this incident to a safe resolution as quickly as I possibly can? I don't want them to handle it the first time when they see it in real life. And so we expose our officers to realistic scenario-based training with our training staff each and every year to make sure we are proficient in that skill set to be able to de-escalate a situation or respond with an appropriate response to be able to control the situation, bring it to safe resolution, and then move forward in making sure that we resolve the issue entirely. So that's really important. I just wanted to highlight that in-service training. We are ready to move into it actually this evening again. We do it twice a year, once in the spring and then once again in the fall. And so tonight our officers who work overnight will be coming in and our training staff will move on to their shift and they will be going through another iteration of that training. This time we will, again, there'll be some legal update and policy update. And we're also going to work on proficiency in conducting traffic stops. Traffic stops being one of the more dangerous applications and responsibilities an officer has in the community, both from a safety perspective in keeping motorists safe, but for the officer safety as well. So that's training that we're going to be working on over the next couple of weeks. As we talk about the organization and again, preparing ourselves to make sure we are ready to respond to critical incidents, we always want to be looking at our policies as well. And so one of the highlights and points of emphasis I wanted to make today was to just share some overview of what the direction, guidance, and policy is for our organization. So we are a CALEA accredited law enforcement organization. That is the Commission on Accreditation for Law Enforcement Agencies, which is an international accreditation, a third-party independent accrediting body that takes a look at our organization to make sure that we are meeting the highest standards in law enforcement and the best practices in law enforcement. We've been CALEA accredited for over 30 years, which we are very proud of. And that process requires not only the enactment of policy, but making sure that we can prove the policy we have in place we are following each and every occurrence. So we have over 400 standards through CALEA that we have to put policy in place for to make sure we're giving the appropriate guidance and direction and oversight to our officers in delivering protection and service to our community. So 400 standards result in an abundance of policy, as you might imagine, for our officers to have the right guidance on how to handle situations and what the appropriate response is for the expectations and us delivering protection and service. But the importance of that process is not so much that we have been reaccredited so many times, 9 times to date. It's not just the certificates on the wall. The importance is that we are perpetually looking at our practices to make sure that our operations, our direction and guidance for our officers are not just past practices, but indicative of best practices. And that requires us to intentionally take a look at policies on a regular basis and make sure that when we need to update them, we do so, and that when there are changes and shifts in our profession or in the expectations from our communities that we serve, that we are progressing our policy, that we are amending our policy. So again, that it is reflective of best practices in our industry. So a few highlights from that policy update this year that were part of our, again, taking a look at our policy and amending it, but also being responsive to concerns from communities. As Sue mentioned, there's so much conversation about policing in America that has occurred over the last year. And frankly, I have embraced it from the perspective of people are paying attention to what they get from their police department. And this is not my police department. This is the community's police department. And so for us to be able to lean into that conversation and explain what we do, why we do it, and eventually meeting the public to get to tell them who we are as we do it are really important conversations that I really have felt blessed to be able to have with our community members this year. So in the policy updates, one of the things that we wanted to highlight just as awareness for the community, there were some pieces of policy that we wanted to make sure we moved forward on, and they were implied in our policy previously, but we wanted to make sure that we affirmatively said, these are the expectations for our members, and say to our public, these are the expectations of our organization. So the policies on duty to intervene and duty to report are important pieces of conversations we have with the community, because these were really things that we felt were implied by our code of ethics, our code of conduct, and our expectations and our core values of our members. But for those occasions where we need an officer to intervene to keep harm from occurring or to keep us from falling outside of the policies that we enact, we expect our members to take action affirmatively to make sure that the situation is resolved as safely and as quickly as it possibly can. So our definition of duty to intervene, any officer present and observing another officer using force that is beyond which is objectively reasonable and under the circumstances shall intervene to prevent the further use of unreasonable force. Again, our expectation is always that our response to resistance is in line with case law, with the direction of this agency, and is as safe as it can possibly be. And that is a response to resistance, which is why we changed the terminology slightly from use of force. It isn't our desire to apply force, it is our response to resistance we are perceiving to bringing and our actions in bringing the situation to a safe resolution as quickly as possible. But we wanted to make sure that we affirmatively said to our members, even if it was implied previously, that we are, our duty is to intervene in those occasions where a situation has progressed beyond what our expectations are for our organization. And then duty to report, additionally, any officer who observes or has knowledge of another employee using force that exceeds the degree of force permitted by policy or law shall promptly report these observations to a supervisor. Again, these were things that were implied in our organization and expectations we absolutely had for our members. But if you don't say it out loud, if you don't list it affirmatively, then you run the risk of maybe missing on the occasions where an officer could take action to make a situation right, and again, bring it to safe resolution as quickly as possible. So we felt like it was important to progress in our policy and make sure we listed that again for our officers internal and for the public. We've also had some progress and discussion on our policy of pointing a firearm. This really relates more to our tactics as officers and changes in our industry that again are progressions for us in being able to provide protection service and public safety in partnership with the community and meeting community expectations at the same time. So part of our training for our traffic stops over the next few weeks are transitioning how we conduct those traffic stops to make sure that our officers are safe, but also that on the occasions where we are required to point our firearm, we are able to articulate that the reason we are doing so is because we perceive a deadly force encounter could be imminent, or there is a threat to our safety, the public safety of serious physical injury or death. And those thresholds have to be met. Our officers have to be able to articulate that, again, to make sure that we are falling in line with expectations of the public and also get the expectations and progression of our industry and public safety. And then the last policy that we have worked on over the last few years, or I'm sorry, over the last few months in finalizing is our officer involved critical incident response. And those events, as we talk about in this category, those very infrequent and hopefully never enacted occasions where we have an officer-involved critical incident in the city of Dublin. We have never had an officer-involved shooting in the city of Dublin, and I hope that that is never the case, but we have to prepare as if that is something that could eventually occur, and we know exactly how we are going to respond to that incident. The public knows exactly how we are going to respond to that incident, and there is clarity in all directions on what that means for our community. I will tell you, and just because the policy is long, but the highlights really are, we affirmed that our policy from the past is how we will continue in the future. If we had an officer-involved critical incident, we would not investigate that incident by ourselves. We would lean into a third party to come in and conduct that investigation so that it was completely impartial and there was clarity for the community. And the resource we would lean into is the Ohio BCI. That is who we've identified that we would ask to come in and conduct that investigation. And again, as much as we can be preparing for that, we hope to never have to use this policy, but we absolutely have to address that. That is a conversation occurring in communities across the nation, and we want to be in position to be able to answer that question for our community members and for the members of our organization as well. So thank you for letting me talk through that slide. If we can advance to the next. So again, one of our goals each and every year is reducing criminal occurrences within the city, or the number of reports we receive for criminal incidents in the city. And I'll say right up front, no amount of crime is acceptable to us. We take crime personally. It's our job to make sure our community is protected. So when we talk about the number of offenses that have occurred and the information we have in front of us, while we had some very good results over the last year, our goal is to have no crime. And that's a lofty ambition. But our goal is really to make sure that because each one of these numbers represents an individual who was the victim of crime. So again, as we continue to reduce, our goal is to continue to progress so that we are not experiencing the levels we've experienced in the past. Over the last year, fortunate to say, we did see reductions in the two categories that we track primarily that contribute to the highest number of incidents we record every year. So theft from vehicle, we did see a reduction from previous year's totals. And then in burglary and B&E, we actually only saw one reduction of occurrence, but last year was a historic low for us as well. The burglary or B&E reports for the entire year. So, but importantly, again, even that reduction by one is one less victim we had last year and one less report or recorded incident of burglary or B&E. But I did want to give you an update. Now, certainly, some of this is attributable to the fact that we were all shut down during a pandemic. So while I want to give an acknowledgement to that, it is also intentional focus by our officers, continual conversation within our organization on the strategies and tactics that contribute to us reducing the number of offenses that occur within the city each and every year. The other thing I wanted to highlight on this slide is as we look at that information, it's not simply whether or not we're achieving that rate of reduction, but also are there any trends in that activity or things that we need to address in our strategies and tactics to help keep the community safe or resolve incidents as they occur. So one of the particular trends that we saw over the last year, we wanted to make sure we highlighted it back in October when we met with the HOA leadership. And we did see a few more occurrences as the year finished out, and I just wanted to make sure we presented here today as well. We had 38 vehicles stolen from the city of Dublin over the last year. And I will tell you that is a increase from what we have typically seen, but importantly within that number, one of the things we want to highlight as we continue to have conversation with community members is the majority of those vehicles that were stolen were vehicles that had the keys with the vehicle at the time. And in a day and age where most cars or a lot of cars have a key fob that comes with the vehicle where you don't have to actually put a key in to start it, it's very easy, and I've done it myself, where you run in the house and you forget the key fob was left in the console or somewhere in the car. And it's very quick that vehicle could turn up missing. So one of the pieces for us in information and partnership with community members is just a reminder that if you can take the keys with you or any valuables from the vehicle, certainly, we reduce the likelihood that we might see you become a victim of that theft offense. So that was one of the highlights we wanted to make sure we emphasized again today. And then the other highlight that I mentioned back in October, and I want to share again, these are not as frequent, but they're very important for me to emphasize to the community as well. And that is occasionally we will take reports of stolen property from vehicles, that the property being a firearm. And so one of the things for me and the frustrating pieces is any amount of property that is taken isn't acceptable to us, but when a gun is taken, it is a threat to everyone once that gun is lost. So if you do own a firearm, and if you intend on carrying it, first and foremost, make sure you carry it safely and responsibly and legally. But also, if you carry a gun in your vehicle, please do not leave it unattended in the vehicle. Take that with you wherever you are going and make sure it's secured wherever you end up as well. So we just wanted to highlight those pieces of our tracking of offenses over the year to make sure we share that information with you this morning as well. Very quickly, I do not have a slide here for improving traffic safety. And typically what we track and will continue to track are the number of crashes we have occur, and then specifically injury crashes. And then we have very few accidents that result in death, but we make sure that we take a look at exactly what contributes to those to see what we can do to make sure we are keeping everyone as safe as we possibly can. We did see a significant reduction in traffic crashes last year by the number 300 less than we have seen in years past. I don't know that is as sustainable as maybe some of our other efforts are, because that is largely contributed to the fact that people are just not traveling for months and months at a time, not going to and from work. But our goal still, again, in traffic safety is to make sure we are improving it for those traveling to, from, or through the city each and every day. So if we can move forward to the next slide. And then the last slide, that goal of addressing issues of significant community concern really was a fantastic opportunity for us to address exactly what we've talked about already, which were conversations with our community members and really get to lean into some of those discussions about policing, about safety, and what that means for our community here in Dublin. And I have to say, I'm just so proud that our community was able to come together and have these conversations. And I'm very proud of the city manager and our city council for issuing the resolution over the summer, enacting two specific bodies to continue the conversations in our community. So Resolution 4120 is resolution establishing a community task force and Chiefs Advisory Committee to assist and advise on combating and prohibiting social injustice, inequity, intolerance, negative stereotyping, and discrimination. And so out of that resolution, we created two bodies, the Community Task Force and the Chiefs Advisory Committee, to continue those conversations that began over the summer and really build a connectivity to community members, so we are hearing what the expectations are from our community and leaning into conversation with our community members on a regular basis. So the advisory committee, and I just wanted to, for those who have not heard who or what that advisory committee looks like for the Chiefs Advisory Committee, I just wanted to again highlight the members who came forward and are part of that committee. So I'll give you the names. There are 10 members who were appointed to the committee: Dwayne Maynard, Ajmiri Hawk, Tree Gadam, Cameron Justice, Yan Ling Yin, Susan Ortega, Imran Malik, Courtney Ingram, Isao Shoji, and Stella Vialba. And importantly, all of them are representative of community stakeholders. We have business leaders, we have residents who have worked in the legal profession. There are members who are part of our Dublin City school system and who are part of that conversation. And so the additional members that we have as part of that overall committee, those are the members, community members who are appointed to the committee. But the additional voices that are, again, at each of those conversations when we come together, our administrative staff. So myself, our two lieutenants, Lieutenant Tabernick and Lieutenant Latanzi, our director of our communication center, Jay Somerville, and then Rebecca Myers has been a fantastic help from communications and public information, and then our admin specialist, Becky Metcalf, helps us with those meetings as well. And I also appointed two members of our organization as officers and as a supervisor to represent perspective of the officers who are working out in the field every single day as well. So Amber McCloskey, who is also our LGBTQ liaison for the city of Dublin and for the police department. And then our supervisor is Devin Howard, who is a corporal, a frontline supervisor with our organization. And he also represents our bargaining members and the FOP as a member on that Chiefs Advisory Committee. So as an advisory committee, we've been able to come together 5 times. Primarily, our discussions have been about the school resource officer program during those first few meetings. But we had an opportunity to really lean into that conversation to find out what the committee members were interested in hearing, and then bring our school resource officers to that conversation to answer questions that the committee members had, and to inform them what they do each and every day, and to meet those members who are in our school system, serving our community and serving as partners with the school system. But the importance really has been, again, building that connection and continual conversation with the community. And as we lean forward into some of the topics the committee has asked us to share some information on and provide an opportunity for them to ask some questions, some of the topics of discussion that we're moving forward in the future are officer-involved critical incidents. We want to cover that policy with that committee. Our response to resistance policy, rendering aid in the aftermath of a response to resistance encounter, our policy on body cameras, our response to civil disturbances, or our crowd control policy, and then the discussion on our school resource officer program. Now that we are at the back end of that full discussion, what we're hopeful to hear from the committee are the suggestions and recommendations they might have for whether it be training or programming that we can help deliver in partnership with the school system, certainly, that will help, again, build an understanding of what we do, why we do it, and who we are as a police department in this community. And so those are the slides. Again, I just wanted to make sure we gave you an update, and if there are any questions, I'd certainly be happy to answer any questions you might have this morning as well.
Okay, we do have about 5 minutes for questions if anyone has a question for Chief Paez. Be sure to unmute yourself.
Hi, Chief.
Morning,
Nice
Claudia.
seeing you again. It's been a long time.
Yes.
I just wanted to say that I was really very proud to see you at the BLM protests, and how responsive you were to a group of people who may or may not agree with you on everything. But it really made me proud of our city and especially of our police department. So thank you.
Well, thank you very much. You know, and again, one of the things in reflection, you know, I want to share with this group, and I share as often as I can, the reason it was easy to go and have those conversations, because these are our community members. They were our young leaders. They were our teachers. They were our residents. And to hear anyone so passionately come out and want to share their perspective, we have to lean in, we have to listen, and we have to lead. And so I would, again, so very proud of our city for joining that conversation, and just excited to see where that takes us in the future as a community.
I have a quick question. You talked about traffic accidents. Are we getting better at the roundabouts?
We have seen improvements in the adjustments at the roundabouts over time. So certainly we'd like to see no accidents happen there, but we have seen improvement over time. So, and that's a testament to, again, a fantastic partnership we have with engineering and thinking through, okay, what adjustments are necessary, and then what can we do from our end on enforcement, and as a reminder in education for people who are traversing that roundabout each and every day. That's a great question.
Chief, you mentioned the body cameras. Do the officers have body cameras now? I don't know if I missed that or what.
That's a great question. Thank you for asking. Yes. So all of our officers are issued a body camera, and anyone who is in a uniform capacity, including our patrol division, our traffic enforcement division, and our school resource officers are wearing those body cameras each and every day. And then anyone also in a specialized function may not be wearing it each day, but they have one assigned, so that in those occasions where they're going to be serving in a capacity where they're going to be in direct contact with the public, then they would be required to wear that as well.
Okay, thank you.
Chief, thanks for coming today. The outstanding presentation. What is the primary role of school resource officers? Has that role changed over the past few years, and will it change in the future?
That program has been existent since the late 90s. And so we were one of those communities that was very fortunate to invest early. If you think back just even 2 years, how much conversation there was about communities building school resource officer programs. We were very fortunate to be in a position where we have already a very robust program. We have 9 members of our 72 sworn officers that are assigned to that community education unit. Now that's 2 supervisors, but the other 7 are all assigned to individual schools. We have 1 in each of the high schools and then 4 in middle school capacities that also serve as a liaison for our elementary schools. So their focus has changed a little bit over time, but really holistically, the intention is to be a resource in partnership with the school system to help on issues where they may need to be there in an enforcement capacity, but we very rarely find that is the abundance of what they are doing. They are connecting with students, they are building a partnership with teachers, they are in support of the programming that occurs in the schools and providing some programming as education on the occasions where we can squeeze into what is a very full docket, as you might expect, for students each and every day. So again, protection and education and then connectivity really has been the progress for our students, and just making sure we're there as a resource to take care of, again, the safety concerns, but also touching point with students to make sure they know there is a resource that they can lean into that isn't just that the occasions where they need to talk to somebody that isn't a school-related issue, we can follow up with on our end. So I'll give you an example too. An Officer Burks, who is the school resource officer at Jerome, shared this with the advisory committee recently. And Officer Burks in 2016 was the crisis intervention trained officer of the year for the state of Ohio. So somebody who is completely immersed in, again, connecting with students and making sure he is there as a resource for them to be able to talk to and to work through things that they may be dealing with that aren't happening at school, but may be affecting them at school. And so having an officer there have been occasions where we might have had contact with a student or at a student's house that didn't deal with the student, but it may impact what they're dealing with, and they may be carrying that into school, and that may be impacting their ability to, again, be in the right space to be present at school or to be as productive as they can be. And so Officer Burke shared some examples of students, not specifically by name, but students he had reached out to knowing maybe they were going through or struggling with something that he could help talk through with them, or at least let them know, I'm here for you. So I think in that way, that's been a transition for our focus for the members of our community education unit and their capacity in the school over the time that we've had the program.
Great, thank you.
Okay, well, we are at the appointed hour, so I'm going to need to cut off questions there. But thank you, Chief Paez, for being here today and for your presentation. I've always noticed that each of your vehicles has the words professionalism, integrity, respect, and commitment on them. And I know that those aren't just words on a card. You actually live by those words and you're committed to those. And I echo what Claudia said, that all those qualities were on full display last year during the Black Lives Matter protests. And so we're proud to be in this community with such a great police force and your leadership. So thank you for being here today and for your presentation.
Thank you so much for the time. And again, as always, thank you for all the support you provide us. And we look forward to, again, any opportunity we can come back and share some information. So thank you again.
Let's give a hand to Chief Paez. Virtual hand. You can't hear us, but you can see us. Okay, next week, our speaker will be Dr. Elaine Martis with the Genomic Mediate Children's Hospital. This week, for our quote of the week, Sunday is Valentine's Day. I'm sure I'll see some of you guys at the Kroger flower shop this weekend, gathering candies and flowers. But I want to read from a famous movie, a love quote, and see if you can tell me what movie this came from. And I think with our demographic, this should be an easy one. I I'm going to just read the first line first and see if anybody gets it. Open your eyes and look at me. Anybody? All right, I'll go on. No, I don't think I will kiss you, although you need kissing badly. Susan.
It's got to be Gone with the Wind.
Yeah. Rhett Butler, Gone with the Wind. Open your eyes and look at me. No, I don't think I will kiss you, although you need kissing badly. That's wrong with you. You should be kissed and often, and by someone who knows how. That was in 1969. Good job, Susan. All right, y'all have a great weekend. Happy Valentine's Day. Go get you some loving and kissing, and we'll see you next week.
See ya.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.